Today we are going to be looking at a very germane subject: the struggling economy and whether our state governors really get it. The last projection that we have indicates that GDP is going to grow from what we had the previous year of about 1.9% to 2.3% and to peak at 2.4% in 2020. Of course, a lot of this is going to be dependent on a lot of movement, rather than motion, in the way and manner we do our physical federalism, the discipline we bring about in our finances, hopefully, and with time, with Mr. President coming out to talk about the fact that we are now going to begin to embrace elements of federalism. And I take that to mean, at the first instance, fiscal federalism, a rate of collection of taxes, a GRIC, which is a tailwind, highly affected by the herdsmen and farmers' clashes, with the overall insecurity that we have in the Northeast, the spate of kidnapping that is now prevalent in virtually all parts of Nigeria. How do we go? Where do we go to? Do state governors really get it? And I have my panel here who will put a good fillip to this discussion.
You can't really tell, because in a way, governors are like they're like guards or security people. You get to know their strength only the day thieves come. Before then, you just hope they're good. So we're not sure. What we can say is what they should be doing. So a governor with a bit of sense in Nigeria today will realize that the way forward is not to rely solely on federal government allocation anymore, and to find a way to generate revenue in the state itself. Now, I must put a disclaimer immediately, because each time people talk about generating revenue in the state, the tendency is to look for the famous internally generated revenue, which means tax. I am not a friend of tax. So actually, I'm allergic to tax, where possible. The good government should be a government that will realize that its job is to create an environment where jobs can be created, opportunities come to surface, and wealth creation should be pushed for. So the state governor that gets it will diversify and will turn his or her state, well, we only have male governors in Nigeria, will turn his state in a state that is sort of open for business, that will attract investors, inventors, and analysts to go there. It will be a place to construct, experiment, and grow. And they have to understand that whatever they do in the world today, it should be very local, but the mindset should be global. So they should speak to people within Nigeria and beyond Nigeria. The diaspora is a big constituent, waiting for people to take their money and their ideas. But Nigeria is not ready. The international community is willing, and that is what the governor that gets it needs to be looking at.
I get that, to begin to widen the scope for critical thinking. Though some people will argue, some economists will argue that when you compare the rate of taxation that we have in this part of the world vis-a-vis GDP, we are still the lowest. But Tony, you made the point. Boniface, yes. I know classical economics looks at this a bit slightly different, maybe slightly different. Same objective, but slightly different. What's your take?
Well, I think that it's obvious that the states they're challenged. When we had a recession, it's on record that federal government had to bail out the states. federal government gave one tranche, and they were still not able to pay salaries, had issues on hand, and the second tranche was also given. In fact, this payment lately has become a news item because the Governor of Central Bank recently received a renewal of his tenure. And there's something online saying that, there's some money involved and 600-something billion naira involved. And the explanation is that was part of the money that was lent to the states. And that money was lent to the states, and they were given 2 years grace period, to pay this money. And at 9% interest rate. So that's like a very soft loan. And if you ask me from where I stand, I think that money is gone. I don't think it's going to be recovered. And many people who should be paying tax, so they're not paying today. If, for instance, you take Lagos and you go to the market women in Okeari, and they don't keep any books. And if you go and impose a levy, and of course we must accept that it's like a social contract in the sense that if people are paying tax, they want to do something in return.
Let's add into that the recently promulgated minimum wage, which is going to add some supplementary requests to the National Assembly. And we are all agreed, substantially agreed, that whether at the federal or at state or local government, it should be equal. Now, whether states are going to be able to do this within the dwindling revenues that will be coming, and within the fact that they are not able to critically think out of the box, we might end up facing some real legal, social challenge. Rudolph.
Nigeria runs or tries to run a federal system of governance. Tries to run, says it does, the same. But in actual fact, does not do so. So, with the best of intentions, a governor is actually hamstrung, to do many things to improve the lives of his people. Even though with the little that is available, you could say, look at certain states, look at certain, like Lagos, for instance, as a beacon for other governors but the truth is, you are not really going to get much from many governors with the way the Nigerian federalism is.
From the rentier economy that we run, and from the perspective of the fact that the thinking cap is really not straight.
I agree. We have scarcity of resources. We have that. That's true. But then if they prioritize this, there's lots of wasteful spending within the system. There's lots of corruption within the system. Lots of money is being diverted within the system. I believe that if the governor prioritizes and says, I said this because it's important, you cannot have workers except we believe that you're just carrying them, you're carrying dead weights.
And when you go to the matter of minimum wage, which Akin was going to, I have a confession to make. On principle, I'm against minimum wage, must be said. Because minimum wage is something that leads to inflation, that reduces job employment. But I am for welfare. Now, the economics of that is that we should be defending the value of money, not just giving more money that the people now used to buy less. What we should be doing is to make sure that a naira can buy what you should be buying with 100 naira. Where we are today, a naira buys you what 100 naira can buy. Then you give people 500 naira, then everybody raises their price. So on principle, there's a problem there. Now, in the specific Nigerian situation, this idea that from Sokoto to Calabar, from Lagos to Borno, people should be earning the same salary makes no sense.
I think that's the point. I think that's the point. And I believe that when the president talks about physical federalism, I think that's one of the things that have to come on board. Like you did say, there's no reason why somebody in Lagos, a worker in Lagos, should earn something and somebody in Zamfara.
We've referenced the president 3 times. It's a good thing that the president is talking of federalism, but this president is probably learning about federalism because we should be careful of our references. If all of a sudden President Buhari becomes the reference point for federalism, then we have a problem. Let us look for other references. Let us look for people who have been talking about federalism for decades, maybe. And let us say finally, somebody in government is now talking about federalism, then those people that have been talking about federalism should show the way to the new converts.
Let's go out to the street and hear what the public is saying in regards to this subject. We shall be back.
When the government is saying that way, it will be reduced. The number of people that are just striving to get there.
In my own opinion, I feel the entire nation still has a long way to go because we are not employing a strategic approach. It's important that we all come together to put together a concerted approach or a concerted vision of where we want to go to as a country. A lot of states in Nigeria, and even Nigeria as a country, do not have economic projections, or maybe if this exists, not all of us know. Each state must create a vision for their state economy. What do we want our state to become in the next few years, and how do we get there? How do we rejuvenate our strengths? How do we maximize our natural resources?
The need for state governments to improve their internally generated revenues. There have been events like the increase in the minimum wage, and also Nigeria overtaking India to become the poverty capital of the world. So at this time, I think it's important to say Nigeria must produce or die, and the states are a key part of that component. They must stop depending on allocations from the Federation account or Paris Club bailouts and seek for ways to generate revenues that can contribute to moving Nigeria to the next level truly. How this would happen, I would say, is by state governors leveraging on their human capitals in their various states and then their various resources, say like solid minerals in the north, agriculture in the middle belt, and then probably the economic strength of the southwest. I would also say government should not be straight-jacketed and focus solely on tax, but should also seek for ways to become more accountable so that people have a buy-in to the various projects of government. Government spending should become transparent, and then government should also seek for a way to leverage the internet as a force for democracy.
We are back, and having listened to members of the public concerning this subject, we want to begin to drive this a little bit home. Whether the governors really understand what is expected within the dwindling resources that is available to them within fiscal federalism, and begin to profile some form of solution, realistic, workable solution, so that we can lift our people out of poverty. Gentlemen.
Well, let me start by saying that, in a way, I agree when Rudolph says that there is a problem, there's a structural problem, in the sense that the system we practice does not allow governors to be federalist, and consequently, it doesn't allow them to act. I disagree with him when he says we're trying to practice federalism. We're not trying to practice federalism. We say we have federalism. Federalism is what they do in the USA, is what they do in Switzerland, is what they do in countries where there is regional state canton powers. We don't have that. We have a centralist quasi-monarchical system. So we have to be very careful. Actually, not careful. We have to be blunt about it if we want to improve it.
He asked us about what the governor should be doing. I think
that's what he's saying.
I think that's really, if you ask me, I think the governor should go there, first of all, and ensure that salaries are paid. This is very important. You have governors, you have workers, and you don't pay them salaries. Then what sort of productivity do you expect to have in your system? And that's the first thing.
But if that assumes
that depends on you. That's what
that assumes that you are going to be paying salaries because you have enough to be able to pay salaries. And I know that a lot of governors are crying out loud and saying they are not able to pay the 30,000 basics, and that is now being imposed on them. Rudolph.
I don't even think, excuse me, I also, sorry sir, I don't agree with Boniface that a governor's first job is to pay salaries. I mean, how many people of the population of his state are civil servants liable, that take his stand and depending on his on him. You know, so that cannot be his first task. I think the problem is, or the governors should realize that being in charge of the governance of a state is running an enterprise. An enterprise that now is not just for profit. You have to deal with other matters, security and health and social security, and all those things. So so they should be concerned about production, about education.
I think the great governor of Nigeria will be what I would term the last governor. A governor that will come into office and after him will make being governor not attractive. That is where people after that will not be killing themselves to become governors anymore, or young people praying to be SA instead of planning to get something innovative in their life and doing something with their life.
Maybe that will be mass. Maybe that will be mass.
In Nigeria, across the states, we still talk about the epileptic power situation. And despite the best intentions, the power sector reform programs, today it's going to be gas problem, it's going to be gas pipeline breakage, it's going to be, the turbines not working and stuff like that. What do you think, if you become the next governor, how will you be tackling this vis-a-vis the legislation that we should put in place to ensure that the correct tariff is paid, the correct metering is done, and what have you?
I think that's a power. Power is a very, and we're not going to make any sort of progress we want to see if we don't resolve the power situation. It's very important. And like somebody did say, it has to bring about thinking outside the box. It's about time we begin to, the national grid will have to accept that it has failed. And so we're talking of liberalizing and getting solar energy, wind energy, and so on and so forth. So we begin to go into it so that if a state government, there's no reason why a state government cannot begin to build its own solar energy.
And you see, when we say they've accepted that, there have been some people for decades who've been telling them this thing doesn't work. So, somebody should take, there's a problem in this country beyond the things we have. We tend to lack a sense of history, accountability, and knowing who was wrong yesterday, who was right yesterday. And I think it would be good to build on things like that because this national grid, some of us for decades were shouting to say, it makes no sense. So all of a sudden, after wasting years, time in darkness, you come around and say, oh, now we know it's wrong. As if nothing happened.
I think that
we look at that and we look at security. You can't have the kind of security kidnapping here and there in this country and you expect to attract foreign investments and all that.
Just before we close, I would like us also to remember the local government chairman. Because we mentioned the governors, we've spoken about the governors. But the local government chairman are equally key.
They will have their time.
They will
pick on the governors today.
They are not only key. I think we are beginning to look at situations where state governors are not going to sit on local government funds. Unfortunately, time is not our friend, and we have to wrap up at this stage. Fragile economy. It's all agreed that the economy is fragile, it's not inclusive, struggling out of coming back from recession. The governors have to put in their thinking caps to grow the productive sector, to do staff audits, and above all, have the right vision and lead by example. This conversation continues even beyond here. We have on your television screen, you could see our Twitter handles, our social media handles. You can continue the conversation. We shall be back.